Welcome to DFW Running Talk. I'm Chris Detzel, so let's get started. All right, welcome to another DFW Running Talk. I'm Chris Detzel, and today our special guest is Heidi Swartz. Heidi, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on. And you're the race director of Cowtown here in Fort Worth, right?
Correct. Yes.
We're going to talk a lot about Cowtown Marathon, half marathon, 5K, 10K, and 50K, whatever else you have
I
there.
think you got them all.
Okay, good. I don't know if you had a mile or...
No, not yet. You never know, though.
You never know. And look, it's a very prestigious race in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We'll dive into that. But I want to get to know you a little bit, Heidi, just who you are. When did you start running? And then your journey into how did you get involved in Cowtown and all that kind of stuff, if that's fair.
All right. I will say that I was never a runner. I grew up in Montana, so I was more of a snow skier, ice skater, that sort of thing. Golf, tennis, but never running. And I actually ran the Cowtown. The first time I ran the 10K was in 1994, and only because I had to. My son was in elementary school, and they had a school team that was participating at the Cowtown 10K, and they were required to have a parent run with them to do the 10K. So I was forced into running, and I ran the 10K with Trey in 1994. We had to train with the school. We had to show up twice a week and run at the school with the kids and train, and ran the race and came through the finish line. And I thought, this is the most cool thing I've ever done in my entire life. And the next week I turned in my resume to try to get a job at the Cowtown Marathon.
Wow. And you just got the job. That's how you started running.
That's how I started running. That was my introduction. So Cowtown was my introduction to running through my son's school.
All right. Let's dive into the running piece where you ran this 10K with your son because you had to, but you loved it. You applied for the job.
I loved the finish line. I didn't say I loved the running. I thought the atmosphere and the event was so cool. I wanted to produce it. I actually didn't start running again until I became the executive director of Cowtown, which was in 2003.
Wow. You've been doing that since 2003.
Yeah.
And you didn't do any running since after the 10K from 94.
Correct. And then I became the executive director of the Cowtown, and I decided if I'm going to be the director of this event, I better know why these runners are asking for all these crazy things. So I took up running. And
all right, let's back up. So you mentioned that you applied like a few months later after the 10K.
Did you work? Yeah.
Did you do anything with them, or?
I turned in my resume. They didn't need anybody. And then the fall of 1996, they contacted me and hired me in November of 96, and I came to work for Cowtown.
And what'd you do for Cowtown then?
I came as the assistant to the executive director in 1996. She was looking to retire, and she wanted to train somebody to take her spot.
And she retired in 2003?
And she retired in 2003.
You had a big gap there, so she really taught you a lot of stuff.
Everything you ever wanted to know. And I also worked other events. I started working other running events, working for timing companies so I could learn how to time them. So I learned all the nuts and bolts of putting on events from 96 until 2003. And then I became the director. But then I didn't know anything about what runners wanted and why they were asked. Because back then at Cowtown, they had plastic cups at the fluid stops, and people kept complaining about these plastic cups. And I'm like, why are they complaining? They have water. It's in a cup. What's the deal?
Yeah.
So I decided if I was going to understand why they were complaining, I needed to start running. And then I realized, you can't squeeze a plastic cup. It's going to crack and you're going to have water everywhere. And runners tend to squeeze the cup. So
that's right.
I started running in 2003, my first 5K, I was dead last, and I vowed never to be dead last again. And then I got really competitive. And next year I ran that same race and got first in my age division. Now I run halves and I do fulls, and I run every week. So I got the bug.
Yeah, now it's crazy that you didn't do any running until you actually became the executive director. And then you started doing that. That's pretty cool. So you're still running. Mm-hmm. Have you ever had a chance to run Cowtown after you became executive director or no?
No, What we do, I run the route, but I never get to run it at our own event. Yeah. We're way too busy for that. So what we do is we have quite a few volunteers that are runners that don't get to run our race. So in the spring, we run the half marathon unsupported, but we run the route, and we have some volunteers that do a rolling water stop for us. And we have people at the finish line that meet us there and give us our medals. And then we go out to breakfast afterwards. And we do that every year so that we can earn our medals. So.
Just out of curiosity, do you ever get with other race directors, Dallas, like Marcus and others, to talk about strategy or tactics or what? Do you guys do that kind of stuff?
Yeah. Okay. I was on the board for Running USA for several years, and I attend Running USA conference, road race management conference, and we all get together and talk. Actually, Running USA's this weekend, but Cowtown's really busy this year, so I don't get to go. But we all talk all the time. Marcus and I will text each other, or I'll text somebody up in Philadelphia or California, all of the different race directors. We talk, we compare notes, we learn from each other to improve our own races, or if we have an issue, we talk and say, what did you do in this situation? We're all very connected. We don't feel like we're competition to each other. Yeah. We just work together.
I don't really see it as competition. Not really, especially like Dallas and Cowtown. They're spread apart. If you want to run both of them, you could.
Right.
So
if one of us has a really great year with great registrations, that's just going to help the next race that's down the road on the calendar to know that we can have that too. And that's where everything's going right now in the United States. The registrations are just skyrocketing, which is great for the sport.
Yeah, it took a little bit of time from COVID, didn't
it? It did.
I'm interested in kind of the nuts and bolts of this. Is that, look, you've been doing Cowtown for a long time. What's some of the challenges that you face every year? Is there specific ones that you think?
It kind of changes from year to year. It depends on what's going on in the United States. Like this year, my challenge is food. Usually, we have anywhere between 24 to 28,000 runners at Cowtown, and we usually get quite a bit of our food donated. This year, because of all the natural disasters across the United States, the food donations are very slim. So this year, my issue is food. I'm purchasing food for 27,000 runners instead of getting it donated. And obviously, the weather is always one of those things that could be an issue, but there's nothing we can do about it. So we just need to plan all the different scenarios for the weather. But
talk about that, like if it rains or thunderstorms really crazy, or one year you guys had to cancel the marathon and everything else and kept the half. But I remember driving to that and it was crazy. I think the course was fine mostly, but getting there, because I'm in Dallas, the bridges were crazy, and I was like, I'll never do this again.
Yeah. It was crazy. That was an interesting year. And so our race started in 1979. And the first year this race happened, they had ice and snow. And the race happened at that time. It just happened. Everybody showed up and ran. Yeah. Obviously, it was much, much fewer participants. There were only 400 people. Then they showed up and ran on the roads. This one was different in Teen because first off, it wasn't forecast. It was forecast to be beautiful weather. And I have conversations with the National Weather Service leading up to the race. Every year we get on with them and have weekly conversations. What's the weather forecast? What's it looking like? So we know. And on Tuesday, everything's great. By Thursday, we're on the phone with them and they're like, we're going to probably recommend that schools don't do any extracurricular things. There may be a dusting of snow out in the country, but the inside the Metroplex will be fine. And Friday morning, before opening the expo at 9 a.m., we look out the window and there's snow coming down like crazy. I had to find a four-wheeler to take me down to the emergency management office so that we could figure out what we were doing. But that was an interesting year, because we were able, we work really closely with the city of Fort Worth, and they're really great partners. They cleared our course. They cleared the parking lots so we could do the half. So
that's pretty good. I think that's probably important, is how a city kind of reacts. You have to get all these permits and things like that. And I know for Dallas, it's just always, I feel like Dallas is, I don't know if I should say this, but not the marathon, but the city of Dallas themselves just don't believe in exercise and bringing sports things to the city and makes it difficult for all of the people, whether it's trying to build a stadium, which is different, but just runners or whatever, they make it difficult for some of these race directors. And I like to hear about Fort Worth being the opposite.
Yeah, Fort Worth, they just all come together. We meet with all the different departments in the city way far in advance. We have another meeting with them next week. And Parks Department, the Transportation Department, Police, Fire, EMS, we all work together. And I think that's what makes it an enjoyable race to put on, because I don't have to fight with bureaucracy or anything else, because we're a team. Yeah. And it's huge difference for some cities.
I find my top half marathon, I don't really do marathons anymore, but it's Cowtown. The reason is because, one, the crowd support is always really good. Two is it's just unique and different. It feels like a party, and just is well done. But the team has done a very good job over the last since I've been doing it for a long time. I'm sure since 2003. That's why people keep coming to it. Is it true that Cowtown is the biggest race is it bigger than Dallas?
Yes, we're the largest multi-event in North Texas. Yeah.
That's awesome.
We go back and forth between Houston and Fort Worth being the largest in the state. Houston usually beats us. We beat them one year. I don't remember what year it was, but just by a few. Houston's such a great course, and they do such a great job, and it's nice and flat and fast. But yeah, we're the largest multi-event in North Texas.
Yeah, Cowtown's it's nice, but it's not flat.
It's not flat. But that makes it more interesting, right?
I agree. I love it. It's funny because I've never PR'd on that course. As a matter of fact, in general, it's usually not a great course for me to do well. You know what I mean? But I love it so much. I've done it a few times out of the 9 times out of 10. I don't know how many, but it's rare that I'll hit, because I think my best is like a 133 on it. But that was up to hit 133 on a lot of courses. I've never done it twice on Cowtown, and not even close. Like one time 137, sometimes 147, one time's 145. I'm like, man, because weather and it's just hilly. Depends how good a shape I'm in. So it's just been interesting, but I keep going back. And that's interesting info there. One year you guys did this. So mile 9, I think, there's a hill that you could just see, and everybody knows about it. And you did this thing that I liked. I don't think you do it anymore, but that you timed it and you said, there's going to be a prize for whoever wins it, for more, maybe it was motivation or whatever. What happened to that? Was it just...
Yeah, we just stopped doing it. We should resurrect it, because it was a lot of fun. It was from the base of the hill to the top of the hill, whoever was the fastest. It's just... Yeah.
I think something like that is my own personal opinion, is that it could take a little bit of time to market that. So you do it one year, but then you do it 4 years in a row. That 4th year, everybody knows about trying to sprint up the hill. And that's everything that they're going to talk about. So I think... Yeah.
All right. You've got me convinced. So for 2026, we'll add it back in. How's that?
All right. Cool. That was fun. I was like, can I do it? That's mile 9, but we'll see. And I think it's really cool. So talk a little bit about all the things you have to do to prepare. I mean, because from my understanding, do you guys have a lot of events beforehand? There's a 5K doing this. I mean, talk about that. And then
we do a few races during the year, but Cowtown's our biggie. We do a 5K, 10K in October. We do a 1 mile 5K in December. We produce for some other nonprofit organizations throughout the year, but they're all small races. So Cowtown's the big one. But I start working on Cowtown in March. So as soon as the race is over, our fiscal year ends in March. So I'm writing the budget right now for 2026 in the middle of putting on a race. But
idea about budgets.
The process starts in March, where I'm getting bids. I'm getting bids for shirts. I'm getting bids for medals. I'm getting all the different barricade company bids. All of that is in March and April. I order our shirts in June. So I'm really fortunate that my screen printer for my shirts works with me, and he has been working with me for over 20 years, and he prints as I need. So I order from the manufacturer all of our blanks, and I order them in June for them to arrive in September, because they get sewn. I have my own pattern, because I want our runner shirts, to stay consistent year after year. So we have a pattern that we've used for the last 20 years and the manufacturer cuts and sews those, ships them to us in September. And as we get registrations, my screen printer prints. so that I don't have a lot of leftover. So he'll be printing the week before the race, my top off order of runner shirts. Finisher shirts, that's a different deal. Those are what they are when I run out. But the runner shirts. And then if I don't print on these blanks, I use them for other. We have a training program that's year round. So we work on that all year. We train runners for fall and winter marathons and half marathons. And then we train
runners. Do you manage that too, or?
Yeah, I've got staff. So I have a training coordinator that does that for us. But yeah, we have to manage all that. We have a speed training class. We have a 10-mile club. And we do those things year round. And then we have our charity that is a year round program. So we're training kids. We have a summer camp for kids. We have a youth training program that's 6-week sessions year round. So there's a lot happening.
It's quite the organization.
Not just February Cowtown.
Yeah, I knew that, but I didn't know all the things that you had under kind of that Cowtown burrito.
So in our new facility that we have now, we have Pilates classes, we have yoga classes, we have mobility classes, we have CPR classes. So it's just not just a running event.
Yeah. How many staff do you have overall?
Let me count. I have five full-time, and then I've got a couple of temporary staff that work with us in February.
Got it. Wow. It's quite the organization. I love it. But I was talking to, I think it was Logan Sherman about Dallas and stuff like that. But they only have 3 staff, right? Marcus and 2 other people, or 3 or something like that. So, so it's actually less staff than you, but you have more programs that are going on.
We have a lot of programs. Yeah. So we've got our Cadence Youth Running program going on right now. We time it. So we had one in the fall. As soon as cross country ended, we started a 6-week program to keep those kids running. And then as soon as Christmas was over, we started another one so that they start running this one until February. So they'll run in at Cowtown, and then they'll start their track season. As soon as track season's over, we start another one so that they stay training in the summer and get them trained up for cross country in the fall.
So do you see some of the same kids showing up, for all of those sessions? Or
it's really cool to see them. I mean, we just started that program this year. In our first session, that we only had 20 kids. Our second session, we had 40 kids. This time, I think I've got 80 kids in it. So I think it's definitely a need. There's no real good long distance training programs for kids over on the Fort Worth side.
It's probably the same here. There's some programs.
There's some, but and then we've got our Trailblazers program, which is our adult training. And we've got it ranges from session to session, but anywhere between 150 to 350 per session. And that goes year round, just different sessions.
Is that kind of like different programs? Hey, here's a 130, 140, 150 for half, and goes on up, and then same thing with the full, and then you just pay to be with the group and a pacer or something like that.
And then we do their long runs, and we set the course every Saturday, set out water stops every Saturday. We have seminars every Saturdays. We have people come in to speak to them. And then in the spring, we'll do a speed class to help people increase their speed. And then we'll do a 10-mile for those that want to.
That's kind of made you do that over the summer.
Yeah.
It's just really hard to run that fast over the summer.
Yeah, our speed training ends in the beginning of July. As soon as it gets really hot, we stop this week. But we do start our fall and winter training in July.
The only formal program that Dallas has DRC.
I'm sorry, say that again?
The only formal program that we have in Dallas that I can think of is DRC.
Yeah.
Now there's lots of running groups.
Big one. That's a great one. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've run it several times, part of it now. But I'm just thinking, what's formal in Dallas? And the only thing I can think of is what you pay for. Maybe Luke's. I don't think Luke's has anything anymore.
If Luke's does or not, Fort Worth Running Company did for a while, but I don't know if they have it anymore. I'm not sure if Fleet Feet does. I don't know. We have a lot here at Cowtown. It's a good group. Yeah.
I like that you thought about every part of the running aspect of it. You have a few races, the big one. You have a training program for adults. You have a training program for kids. And I was thinking about this is you mentioned that you had 20, then 40, then 80 kids. That's the beauty about getting kids involved. Like you get 20 kids show up, right? And you think, oh man, I was hoping like 60 would show up. But once those kids do it, their moms and dads are telling them their other friends about it. And it just takes off. That's exactly what happens. That's what I did when I had some parent would tell me that, hey, there's this thing that you can go do with your kid every Saturday and just drop them off and they can get exercise, whatever. Like, oh, I'm going to that.
Yeah.
And that's what happens.
Yeah.
You know?
I think our kids program will really blow up. We've been doing summer camp with kids for years. And we do have that. We'll do 2 sessions of summer camp with the kids. The whole goal is because of I don't know if you know a lot about our CAF program. Have you heard of it?
I've heard of it. Yep.
So CAF stands for Children's Activities for Life and Fitness. And we started it back in 2009 because we found like a lot of kids that were coming with their school teams to run our race, they weren't getting proper training. And we wanted to make sure that these kids didn't show up and end up getting blisters and hate it and then never come back. We want them to learn to love the sport because obviously these kids are going to grow up to be adults and they're going to be the people coming back and running our halves and our fulls. We wanted to get the kids to learn that running isn't a punishment, that it's a lot of fun. Our CAF program, we'll go to schools all through the Metroplex. We work with about 14 different school districts, and we go and meet with the running clubs at the schools or the PE classes at the schools, and we teach them, how to take their resting heart rate, and then we run with them, and then we have them take their heart rate again so they can see the difference. We teach them stretches, cool down stretches, warm up stretches, proper running form. And then in the winter, or in the fall, the coaches can submit a grant and request for us to pay for the kids the kids only have to pay $10 to run Cowtown, basically. We're giving them a grant so that they get $30 off their entry fee and the kids pay $10. But they also get shoes and socks because we found out a lot of these schools, these kids are low income and they may be out there exercising, but they're running in canvas shoes that are 2 sizes too small or something that they shouldn't be running in. So all these schools that request grants, we give them grants. And then in January and February, we go back to the schools and we fit each child with a pair of shoes. And we give them socks.
It seems like a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. Oh my gosh. We've got a team out right now delivering to 5 schools today. So we'll do, as soon as school starts in January, we'll go to 4 to 6 schools Monday through Friday, every day up until the week before Cowtown. And we'll deliver shoes to this year to 5,200 kids.
Wow.
And that's where people don't realize when they're paying their entry fee for Cowtown. Yeah, they're paying their entry fee for Cowtown, but they're also helping us pay for entry fees for 5,200 kids and socks and shoes for 5,200 kids because we don't get the shoes donated. We purchase them. This year, the kids are getting ASICS shoes that I've been able to buy through ASICS. They sell them to me at a vastly discounted price. Yeah. But we're still buying shoes, $150,000 worth of shoes that we give to these kids. And then the kids come and run the Cowtown Kids 5K. And they get to see from the fall all the way to February what they've done. And that's the whole reason Cowtown exists, is to be able to get the kids out exercising because they're our future. And they're the ones that are going to be out there running when we're not here anymore.
What a great organization. And I like your long-term thinking around, hey, these kids are going to become adults. And it's true. You guys have been around since 1970 something?
79.
Right? So if you've been around since 1979, I think the Dallas was 1973 or 4.
Yeah,
like
so they did their 50th anniversary last year, and we'll do ours in 2028. So
not too long ago, a few years ago, you guys had the Olympic. What was it? The
United States Track and Field Half Marathon Championships.
How'd that go? From inside,
it was busy.
I'm sure. Did your job change a little bit on some of when you think of like some of the athletes demanding certain things and or certain course kind of things you had to do? Because I remember the course was slightly changed.
Yeah, we had to adjust a few things. Myself and my partner here, Cindy Peck, she handles all of our course here at Cowtown. So between the two of us, we had to adjust a little bit. It added some work, but it was so worth it. It was pretty cool to be able to have all those athletes come to Fort Worth and to see our city and to run our event. It was a challenge, but it was a good challenge.
What was the biggest challenge there? I'm just curious.
I think the challenge was just to make sure that our course was just so clean and precise, and to make sure that we got them off started correctly and everybody it's just more of a nervous factor for us to make sure that everything went perfectly.
As perfect as possible.
So many pieces, parts to a race that people don't realize. And then when it all comes together, it's great. But one thing slipped up, it could be a domino effect. It's just the challenge of making it happen and making it happen smoothly. And Marcus came out from Dallas. He came and helped us at the finish line. Again, we all kind of stick together when we need the help. It's a great family to have to help.
Yeah, I've been trying to get him on the podcast, but he just keeps ignoring me. But then I was like, hey, you think you can get Heidi an introduction? Yeah, no problem. He responds quickly, so I don't really get that. I keep asking, he's still busy. I was like, he's not busy.
Hey, he's not busy. My race is in 3 weeks, and you got me.
And you're here. What did that do for your race? Did that do anything like prestige-wise or anything like that? Or did you think it helped?
I think it helped put us on the map for some of these more elite athletes, because they'll talk about it. They had a great event. They had a good experience. They're going to talk to some of the runners that they run with, and it just gives some more exposure to us. It gave us some more national press, which is great for the city, for Fort Worth's name to be out there nationally and people to realize that we have these events going on here in Fort Worth. I remember when I first started, I became executive director. We never traveled to visit other races or traveled to go to other expos. The only expo we'd ever gone to was Dallas. And when I became director, it was like, that was one of my goals. We need to go and visit other races and have booths at other races. And I remember going to Houston and Austin, San Antonio, and people would come by our booths and they're like, oh, are you Dallas? And we're like, no, we're Fort Worth. We're the city that's over here. People didn't even know where Fort Worth was.
Yeah.
And now we go to those expos and they're like, oh, it's Cowtown, it's Fort Worth. So it was bringing awareness to where we are is real important.
I agree. And it's funny, something that caught me my ear was, you said it helps Fort Worth as well, right? To get exposure to Fort Worth, like you said. So you're thinking, not just a race. Obviously, the race is a big draw, but it also talks about Fort Worth and evangelizes the city. So I love this team aspect of things.
Oh, for sure, because Fort Worth helps us so much. I want to make sure I'm helping them right back. Let's get some exposure to this city and let the tourism industry see that this is a great place to visit.
Absolutely. I think it is. So I have traveled all around the world, and people have traveled here from different friends and stuff like that, or work or whatever. But then they're like, I want to go to Fort Worth. And so they want to see the cows and the downtowns and all kinds of different things like that. And so one thing I want to talk about is COVID. So I ran your race during kind of the COVID time, and they changed everything. How was that? And you still pulled it off. But
that was a challenge. That was a challenge. So we were actually, our race was one of the last races in the United States to happen. And then 2 weeks after our race, everything shut down. I needed to make sure that I could still keep my staff employed. I did not want anybody's paycheck to stop because of COVID. So we did a ton of different virtual things. We did scavenger hunts. We did all sorts of different events in 2020, spring, summer, fall, because I needed to make sure I could keep my staff making a paycheck.
Yeah.
And at the time, we had it in our mind that we could pull off Cowtown in 2021 in February. But then we decided it was just too risky to do it in February. But we still wanted to make it happen. We didn't want it not to happen. We needed to have given people a goal to be able to get outside and run. We opted for that May date. It was warm. That's why we eliminated the full and the ultra, because we knew it was going to be too warm to be able to manage that in May in Texas, because you never know what the weather's going to be. And we also limited the amount of people because we wanted people to be able to still participate, but have some distance. So we did our drive-through packet pickup, which runners loved and we loved, and it would be fun to keep doing it.
I remember that.
February, it won't work too well. You never know what the weather's going to be. But
That's
in
right.
May, it was great. You just drove through and picked up all your stuff. And
I remember that.
you remember that?
Yeah. Yeah. I ran the race and that year as well. And I remember the experience. I remember the course was completely changed. It's like backwards
Yes.
or something. I don't
It
remember
was
it, but I was like,
backwards. It was backwards. It was a
what is
completely
this?
different
Oh, it's
course.
cool. It was
Yeah.
cool. It was just different than what
I
I was
think
used to.
the hardest part of that race was the finish area because people were so happy to be out and running a race.
Yeah.
They wanted to stay and talk. And we promised
That's
the
right.
city we would keep pushing them out,
people out.
and they'd just get their food bag and leave. And nobody wanted to leave. It was like, you have to leave. That was the hardest part.
Yeah.
Then we spent a ton of time creating the corrals for them to go through to get to the start line. We spent hours marking it and making sure we had distance. People didn't want distance. That was our biggest challenge. But it happened. We had about 6,500 people do it. And then we had the rest do it virtually. Would I ever do that again? Probably no.
Yeah. It's a lot of time and effort it's going to be really difficult.
Yeah, that was a tough one. Yeah.
For this year, I'll be running the half as usual.
Okay. So you're already registered?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Okay, good. Because there's no more.
Yeah. Well, I always register for the cheapest because I already know right when you open it up in general, that's when I'll register for both Dallas and Cowtown. And Dallas, I usually pace. Cowtown, I've never paced Cowtown, but that one I always sign up for before.
Yeah.
And you guys do have pacers. I know a lot of people that have paced Cowtown.
Mm-hmm.
So do you use your own pacers to do that?
They're our own pacers. They have to apply and have certain restrictions and make sure.
Yeah.
And they're really good. Our pacers are great. And they pretty much hit their mark every year.
Every year. You got to. I'd feel bad as a pacer that if I didn't hit that number. You know.
We try to have 2 pacers for every pace so that if one of them has issues, the other one can.
I remember, so usually Dallas would have 3 or 4 pacers. And this year they're like, no, we can only have 2 this year because just too many people are registered. So we can't just take those spots away. So this year, so in February, this is just a few weeks out or less. What are you excited about this year?
Oh gosh, I'm hoping that I'm excited that maybe the weather forecast looks good, but you never know.
See.
It's Texas. We'll see.
We'll
right
see.
now it looks good. I'm excited that our kids race seems to be back. COVID really made it so it was slow in coming back, but this year it's just the kids are back. So we should have about 8,000 kids there, which is so exciting for them and for us. It's a little crazy. It's like herding cats. They're just like everywhere, but that's fun. And that our registration is just huge this year. So our biggest race we ever had was in 2015 when we had to cancel everything but the half. And
really?
we had 28,000 runners registered that year. And we're getting back to that number this year. So that's really exciting that the numbers are coming back since COVID and back to where they should be. Our half marathon has hit its capacity. We've sent out a press release. We are opening it up for 350 more spots. That's all I can do this year because I don't want to open it up to so many spots that I don't have parking for them.
Yeah.
I think parking this year is our biggest hurdle because
every year it feels like it's really hard to go park over there for some reason.
It's and UNT Health Science Center this year is charging for parking, which makes it harder. And for 20 years they didn't. And so now they are. And so we're having to pre-sell parking passes for all the different lots over at UNT. So parking is a challenge. I would say that would be my biggest challenge this year is parking. The best thing about this year is great numbers, lots of runners. We have every state represented. I think I have 14 countries coming in. I have 19 people coming from Nice, France through sister cities, which is so cool. They started running with us virtually in 2021 during COVID.
Yeah.
And this group in France, and they ran with us virtually 2021, 22, 23, 24. This year they decided they're just making it a trip and they're offline here to run it in person. So that's so exciting to have all those folks that have been doing it virtually for 4 or 5 years now to be able to come and actually experience it in person.
That's pretty impressive. I love that. And those kind of stories, you could tell me out of those 28,000 or however many runners you're going to have this year, there's a lot of people from all over the world, all over the United States that are coming to these races and to this race, which is a great story.
That's, I think, the best thing about Cowtown is there's always really cool stories happening.
Yeah.
There's so many different things, hurdles that people have gone through to be able to participate or be here. And that's what makes it so exciting. This year we have a wedding that's going to take place after the race. A couple is going to get married. I'm not quite sure. I have to figure out where near the finish line.
But say, how's that going to happen?
I'm not sure yet. I'm still working on that. But yeah, they're going to get married after they finish their half marathon. Okay. So that's fun.
Yeah.
And then the Sister Cities group from France is fun. But again, every year it's something different. I have this one guy from years ago, back in the early 2000s. He was registered for our full marathon and he got sick. And he was in San Antonio with a brain tumor, and he had to, he was diagnosed with this brain tumor, and his father called me a week before the race and said, they say he's not going to make it. Can I come get a marathon medal to put in front of him at his bed to give him motivation to fight? Yeah. And so I don't remember how we got the medal to San Antonio. We got it there. He survived. He came back and ran our race the next year. And those are the stories that keep us motivated to do it every day, because there's so many stories like that every year that are just, they motivate you to make sure you do a really good job and make it a great experience for the runner, because they've got a reason they're running.
So one thing I love about running is that it can take you all over the world, all over the U.S., or just traveling to different places. And it brings in communities, just like you said, the ladies from France, right? And they're a community that's been doing this for a few years now, since COVID. And now they're all coming up as a group to run your race or to run the Cowtown race. It's just, running brings people together.
It truly
does. It's a healthy thing to do. It helps you not just stay healthy in shape from a exercise standpoint, but as a runner that's been doing this for a long time, it helps me with my eating. When I think about eating better, not always, for you to provide that platform for runners to either, sometimes people want to compete, to hit PRs, to win, to just run, just to be out there, just to be with friends, to do a lot of things. And you provide that platform. And for somebody like you seem to just really have a passion, not necessarily just for running, but just for the community overall, and the people, the kids, the healthiness. I love that.
Most definitely. Some of these kids that we go and give them shoes, we're taking off shoes that are 2 sizes too small. I have literally waited for a little girl's toes to uncurl wait 5 minutes because they've been smashed in the shoe that didn't fit her. And so that's the impact. And all of a sudden the eyes light up and they're like, oh, that feels so good. They had no idea that a shoe should be comfortable. And you think about that. They've been sitting in school trying to focus on schoolwork, and they've been uncomfortable with this. Yeah. So not only are we helping them get outside and running, but we're helping them be able to
wear shoes
feel good during the day when they're in school and not have their feet just hurting. There's just so much that what we do does that affects people in the positive. You're right. It is my passion. Poor family has lived with this for 29 years. My kids I started when my youngest was in kindergarten, and my other one was 10 when I started at Cowtown.
Do any of them run the Cowtown?
No? My older son does some, but usually I put him to work. But my granddaughter runs, and then my younger son, he sings the national anthem at the start line every year. He's an opera singer, so he sings for me. And then he works. I put him to work. My husband's a paramedic firefighter, so he's out on the course being a medical hotshot. So it's a family affair that they've been dealing with for 29 years.
It's just come to know that they're going to be out there in one way or another.
Oh, yeah.
To help or run.
They're
or
there.
They
my daughter-in-laws, both of my daughter-in-laws, I told them when they got married that they now have to help with Cowtown, so they're out there.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I've learned a ton just from this conversation. It's crazy. We should have more conversations. I think how much I can learn from you. I think a lot of race directors can learn from just the passion and just the longevity in this sport that you've done. It's crazy. I haven't done much else. Where'd you work before? Now, like for 29 years, now you've done this.
I know. I was a legal secretary for a long time. And then I worked for the YMCA as the office manager, I guess is what you would call it for YMCA. I left the YMCA to come to work for Cowtown. Cowtown's been basically my only job. I worked as an assistant manager at a restaurant in college, but
this is it.
Cowtown's the only real job I would say I've had. It's my career.
How fun. What a great story. Heidi, is there anything that I missed during this conversation that you wish I would have asked or should have asked?
I don't know.
I should tell you I could ask that question before.
I don't know when you're airing this podcast. I would just say if it's airing in the next week or so, if they haven't registered, register really quick because I think we'll close out every distance this year.
What distance are available?
Right now, I've got maybe 5 spots left in the ultra, and I've got 10 spots left in the full.
It's going to sell out for sure.
On Monday, I'll open up the half for 350 more spots, but those will be gone probably in a day or 2. The kids 5K, I've got 400 spots left, and then the adults 5K, 700 spots, and the 10K, 600 spots. So 5K, 10K for a little bit.
Yeah. Wow.
That will sell out.
It's just going to air pretty soon just because of the date of Cowtown, and it's a great conversation. I think a lot of people will be very interested in hearing about this. Heidi, thank you so much for coming on DFW Running Talk.
Nice to meet you.
And nice to meet you. And thank you everyone for tuning in to another Dallas or DFW Running Talk. Please rate and review us. And just know we have a community. It's called DFW Running Group on Facebook of 10,500 people. To search it, Facebook, you'll find it. And until next time, again, thanks to Heidi, and we'll let you go now. Thanks, everyone.